This is my friend Nick Fraser. Nick, I think anybody who knows Nick would agree with me that he's both great artist, one of Canada's national treasures, and also a very wise man. Uh, and I thought I'd ask him to share some wisdom with us. Um, so maybe I could ask you first, Nick. You've made your life as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
I playing drums in particular, primarily. Um, what do you? What are your thoughts about that? Like, was it like I wonder, sort of why or how you made that choice, and what you think of having made a life as a musician?
Well, I mean, you said you used the word choice, and I don't know if I ever made that choice. It always felt like I wanted to play music, and I mean, since I was for as long as I can remember, and so and I've done other things, but they were always just to pay bills and to and so I'm not sure about the word choice. I think I was compelled. I mean, some people use the word calling, which is it's a bit loaded, but I think it might be closer to that than choice.
Yeah. And are you? Has it been fulfilling? Are you happy with it?
Right now,
With all your gigs during the pandemic?
I mean, I think being able to make music with people and to perform music for people gives my life meaning. So it's given me a lot. It's given me a lot, and it's changed how I think about community and how I mean, it's made my life what it is. So, talking about whether it's fulfilling or not, I don't know. Like, I mean, a student of mine went to law school, and I asked him how it was going, and he's like, yeah, it's so much easier than music school because, I just read the thing, and if I don't understand it, I read it again, and then usually I get an A. and whereas music just felt so infinite, and there was always something else behind, you make a breakthrough, and it just opens up another infinite set of problems and challenges and so on. And I think that's what I like about it, is the infinite aspect to it. And I'm sure that the law is also infinite, but maybe not as apparently. I don't know.
Maybe if it's your calling.
Yeah, right.
You said it's your life with music has changed or shaped your views about community. What did you mean by that?
The people that I know that play music, that the community of musicians, I feel like there's an understanding between all of us that I don't have immediately with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dan Fortin refers to non-musicians as the muggles, and I think there's something there. There's something to that people who make music they understand, they have something that other people don't have, and they can create community very easily because of that.
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, 3 years ago now, I went traveling in the U.S. and went to some historic jazz cities: St. Louis, Kansas City, New Orleans, Chicago, and it was just amazing how welcoming people were when I told them, "Oh, I'm a musician from Canada." "Oh, great! So, do you want to come and play? I've got a gig. Do you want to hang out? Do you want to come in session?" I mean, it just doing that, even though it was just for one summer, enlarged my community.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think that that's that the kind of community you're experiencing there is distinctly or related to the fact that it's people playing music? Like, is there something about the experience of playing music together that informs that?
Well, yeah, because the act of playing music, it is a collaborative, communal art form for the most part, I think, and particularly improvised music or jazz music. I mean, people do it by themselves, and there is solo music, a tradition of solo music making, but I think that's not primarily what it is. And so because the work itself is collaborative, everybody's always looking for new people to play with and new people to collaborate with and to I mean, and maybe I'm just repeating myself, but the act of playing music itself is forming community, because you're engaged in a highly personal, intimate act with someone else.
Yep. So that leads. I have 3 questions in mind from what you said, because I want to ask you about improvising. I want to ask you about jazz, but I also want to ask you about this last thing. You said about the act of performing music is this kind of collaboration and so on. So I wonder just about the other people listening to music. Do you think? How do you think that experience you have playing it that you've just described is related to the experience people have listening to it? Like, should they be aware of that, or is appreciation of that musician's experience, should it be part of the listening experience? Like, what's the?
Well, I think that the audience is part of that circle of community and intimacy as well. It's not. There's no. I mean, I was going to say there's no boundary, but obviously there are boundaries between, what their relationships. But yeah, I think that, one of the. I did a recording with Lena Alamano, great trumpet player, and we put out a record called Live at the Transac, and at the CD release, she said, something to the audience, something like, we couldn't do it without you, or and I said, yeah, then we'd just be at the Transac. We wouldn't be live at the Transac.
Right. Yeah.
And I, I mean, it's a joke, but I think that it's true that when you're performing music with people and for people, you're creating an experience that ideally everybody is part of.
Yeah, I keep thinking of more and more questions. So, can I ask you a kind of philosophical question about that? So can you talk a little bit about what you think music contributes to life? Like, do societies need musicians, or maybe it's even just art, but music in particular?
I don't know. Like, you sent me that question earlier when I asked you to send me some
warned
questions.
him about a few questions I might ask him, including whether or not he likes Steely Dan, but we might not get to all the questions.
And I don't know what music contributes to society or what art contributes to society, but I also don't think there's a boundary between art and society and between like I mean, obviously I think art is very powerful, but I think also that you know, you can't get rid of it. So but I feel like there's a lot of elevation of music to that people will talk about how music can change the world or can be emblematic of some kind of political statement, and of course it I mean, well, it can definitely be symbolic and be used in certain ways, but I don't know that music can change the world, because it probably would have done so by now. I mean, because it's everywhere. I mean, and it can change the world in bad ways too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like a lot of the a lot of the music has a lot of music we see today has roots in military music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and military music is a big part of the musical instrument industry, and the music. You know, it's and I don't support warfare.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't know. I feel like I mean, we talked about intimacy. I'm personally interested in small collaborative artworks.
Yep.
You know, in real time, in the same room as people. That's mostly what I'm interested in doing.
Yeah.
And the idea that kind of activity is going to have any kind of heavy currency politically, to me, I just don't think it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not
is.
that particular performance might not, but whether or not that thing is happening for people might have a lot to do with the character of people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a place in the world where it's not happening.
Yeah. But so, a related theme. So, what do you think about the recording industry? I mean, because the way you're talking about music sounds a lot more like the experience of playing and listening live rather than putting on a CD in your car. Or
well, I mean, I like recorded music a lot, and I make records, and I enjoy making records, and I enjoy recording, and I collect records, and I listen to recorded music most days. But it's, for me, it creates a different experience than the experience of playing or listening live.
Yeah.
To me, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, recording music orally with technology is only 120 years old-ish.
Yeah.
You know, and it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah, partially it means you know what people were doing 120 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, you know what they were recording.
Yeah, that's right.
The thing.
That's a big difference. It's true.
I mean, particularly in drums, like if you read about jazz performances in the teens and 20s, they often talk about the drummer and how the drummer was very showman-like and theatrical and loud and busy, and the records don't have that because they couldn't. The technology couldn't take it at that time. So, yeah.
Okay, well, but let me ask you, this is sort of related to that issue of live and recorded. You talked about improvising before, and that's a big part of your musical meaning. And so I wonder what you would have to say about improvisation, like what ways in which you think it's important, and maybe also what's involved in improvising, or in improvising well, if one can say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a cliche to say it, but we're all improvising all the time. I'm improvising right now.
Yep.
You're improvising. We came to the park. We decided what bench we're going to sit on. We brought a table over to put your camera on. You know, these were all improvised acts. But, you know, and maybe the way I'm moving my hands is improvising.
Yeah.
But it's also practiced. It's also highly practiced. So because I'm speaking in a language that I speak, that I know how to speak, and I'm saying ideas that I've thought about before and said before. But the details of what I'm saying are going to shift. If your computer crashed and we had to redo it, it wouldn't be exactly the same. If we had the same conversation, we'd have, it would go different places, but we'd be still talking about the same thing. So, for some reason, it seems to me that work that is improvised, musical work, has less currency than something that is prepared, just in terms of the music industry and the history of music, and I honestly don't know why that is. But also, I mean, so because we're all improvising all the time, that means that you have to be prepared. So, I mean, I don't know, I don't have another example right off the top of my head. But, like, after the H1N1 flu virus in 2009, the American government made a pandemic playbook and made a plan that was not executed at all by the U.S. government. Not even close. And there are all kinds of reasons for that. But it was a bad decision, looks like.
Yeah.
And they're improvising poorly.
Yeah.
They're, so planning and preparation are actually included in improvising. They're not antithetical. They're part of the deal. And it is possible to do that badly.
Yeah.
And it's possible to just float, go with the flow and wherever the wind takes you, and then that has its challenges too.
Do you think that, I'm just thinking, I mean, you gave the example of the pandemic, but I'm thinking of other things too. Do you have the experience that, I'm going to use the word experience twice, your experience of improvising musically has affected your perception of that kind of thing in other domains? In the way people handle other situations, or even in the way you handle other situations?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But also, how would I know? Right?
Yeah.
Uh,
But I guess I was thinking you know, it's possible you would be attuned to seeing people or things that are attuned to situations or something like that.
yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe not.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, I guess I find the sort of improvising or improvised music as a metaphor for life, it only goes so far. Like, I mean, my friend Tony Malaby, we did a workshop in Montreal once, and he said, I just feel like I'm at my best when I'm playing music. You know, I listen more, and I'm funnier, and I'm wittier, and I'm more insightful, and I mean, you know, I don't necessarily feel the same way, and it. Yeah.
Okay. Questions keep coming to mind. You mentioned playing with Tony Malaby. You have 2 records with him and others.
More than
you had
two.
2, but 2 in particular I was thinking of. One, if I think I'm right about this, one is Towns and Villages, and one is Too Many Continents.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder about the title of those.
Oh yeah.
Can you? So I've thought about those titles quite a few times, and I wondered why you titled one record of basically improvised music,
Yeah.
Towns and Villages, and why you titled one Too Many Continents.
Okay. Towns and Villages was I just named it that because I like town signs. And like
This is not what I thought of when I was thinking about the title.
When you drive to a town and it has a sign that says like, and some of the tunes on that record are titled after town signs, like you know, Spencerville, home of the Heritage Gristmill, so on. My favorite one is in Pembroke, Ontario, which just says Pembroke ! I really love that. So, you know, I used to, until this year, I used to travel a lot, drive a lot, to fly, train to places to play. You know, I was usually away, I don't know, a third of the year, 100 days a year, somewhere around there. And so I would see a lot of these signs. And, you know, when you title a record, you have to check that nobody else has a record called that, and check what happens when you Google Towns and Villages. And I Googled Towns and Villages, and then this, like, video game, role-playing game came up where it said, like, how do you establish new towns and villages in such and such a video game? And so I thought, well, that's harmless and whatever. And then later on, so then I guess it was probably my next record after that, it was called Too Many Continents, which I called it that because I had this band previous to this decade called Drumheller. The guitarist, Eric Chenot, he moved to Paris, and we tried to keep it going for a couple of years, but it just didn't work out. And my joke was, well, there are too many continents too many continents involved in trying to keep it together. So called it Too Many Continents. And then when I checked the record for the title of that one, the same link came up, or the same thing came up of like, I have too many continents. How do I get rid of some of my continents on my world in this, you know, societal role-playing game? Anyway, What did you think about?
I thought you were describing, the nature of musical pieces, that they were like different kinds of inhabitations, and sometimes you could live in a town, sometimes you could live in a village, and then too many continents that made it actually sound like, there's too many things going on. Like not in a bad way, but that they're kind of opposite names. Anyway, that's what I thought. But your answer's better and more true. Although mine remains interesting.
I like it. I like yours. That's nice.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something?
Well, I have records that were named more for I have a record called Owls in Daylight, and I like the image of unfamiliarity, or some, and it was made with two people who had never met before we recorded the record, and I thought it was a kind of a metaphor for improvising, the unfamiliarity of a setting.
Yep.
The nocturnal animal in daylight. And I have a record called Zoning, which is kind of vaguely related to different improvisational zones.
So I'm glad you thought of that at least one time. Okay. Let me ask you a couple other things. You talked about improvising a bit. If you're a musician, and in the broad spectrum of music, someone might say, "Oh, what kind of music does he play?" They wouldn't say classical music. Normally, they wouldn't normally say, "Oh, yeah, he plays in a rock band,"
mm-hmm.
right? Like from the range of familiar things, probably people would mostly associate you with the jazz tradition.
Yeah.
And so I wonder what, and you've mentioned it already when you were talking about the recording industry and so on. I wonder what that word means to you, jazz, and whether how you would or wouldn't fit it on yourself.
So, jazz is a complicated word because it's a word that was basically used to racialize people and to signify and ghettoize Black American musicians and composers. And I last year I reread Notes and Tones, which is Art Taylor book of interviews with various musicians, and one of the questions that he asks each musician is, "What do you think about the word jazz?" And almost all of them say, "No, I don't care for that word." These are prominent Black American musicians being interviewed, mostly in the 70s, and I get that. So people like Steve Coleman, they don't use the word jazz. They use the word I think Steve Coleman sometimes says the Armstrong, Ellington, Coltrane continuum. And whatever you want to call it, that is music that is very close to me and that I care about deeply and want to honor and do right by, and it's a practice. Like people talk about that. I've heard the phrase common practice. So these common practice standard tunes that make up the repertoire, and it's, I mean, if you're learning music, I think learning a style or learning a genre of music is an important step. You know, it's going to teach you how certain things work, whether it's melodically, orchestrationally, rhythmically, texturally. And jazz music it just has a lot in it in all those areas, you know?
Yeah.
And so in terms of styles to learn that let you figure out music as a whole, I think there's a lot in it. Whereas if you learn classical music, you might not as easily learn to improvise.
Yep.
Or if you learned rock music, you might not learn to play as dynamically, as acoustically.
Yep.
Say. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been, we talked about improvisation, and obviously.
Sorry, I feel like most artists I know and most people working on music, they want to find their own music.
Yep.
However that looks. And the best of them are not thinking about genre.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not thinking about style and what belongs in a style or whatever, or not. What belongs in their music and doesn't belong in their music is not a product of them thinking about what style of music it is. And so that's why I say that learning, but it might include a lot of the styles that they've learned, the genres that they've learned to play. So that's why I say that it's a step.
Yeah.
Learning the genre is a step to making your own music when you're not thinking about you're not wedded to certain types of instrumental roles or certain types of orchestration that you yeah, like I want to go for music that's not where nothing is assumed.
Yep. That's connected to the thing I wanted to ask you. In fact, it already kind of starts to answer what I was going to ask. But we were talking about the jazz tradition. There is also a tradition of free improvisation and so on, which has a kind of a charged relationship historically with jazz. Like, is it jazz? Is it not? Do they like each other? Do they not?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if you have thoughts on that. How you think about yourself in relationship to those traditions, or also how you think about those, because free improvisation is a tradition too, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder how you think about those things relating to each other and relating to you.
I mean, free improvisation is different than other music because it's an act. It's an act of music making that, in order to be performed, you don't actually have to know that there is such a thing as improvised music, and that it does have a tradition. You don't have to know that, and you can still engage in that act and make improvised music. Whereas with almost any other genre of music, that's not true. You can't just, if you had never heard jazz, the likelihood that you would make jazz is pretty low, I think. Yeah, I when I first was learning to play music, I really liked. I liked jazz, and I liked metal and punk rock and hip hop, rap, and I really I read, I would read about Ornette Coleman, say, and I thought, oh, that sounds like just chaos. Like I was really attracted to the punk rock kind of like noise, chaotic aspect of it. And then when I heard Ornette Coleman, I was like, oh, this just sounds like jazz.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
And but I was always just attracted to this notion of making something out of nothing and having chaos and having and so when I started to play free improvised music, I felt really liberating because all the kind of habits that I had from playing more genre-based music, they kind of evaporated. Now, once I played improvised music for even just a little bit longer, I realized, oh, I'm just going to have a different set of habits and a different set of tropes and cliches and things that I'm attracted to, and it just seemed like a great challenge to try and deal with those things.
Yeah. Yep. There's something else I want to ask you about that, and I thought let me see if I can get it back.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I know what it was.
I don't know how to tell this story without naming names, but I attended this virtual master class, and this gentleman played some of his music, and in one of the solos, this guy, one of the soloists on his record, quoted A Love Supreme. Like, he went da 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 da, and I heard that and I thought, wow, that is really lame. Like, I would never put that on my own record. It is such a cliche. It's a cliche. It's a 50-year-old record. Everybody knows it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, but so I feel like everybody, when you're working in you might have to engage in some restraint. If that kind of thing comes to you, a cliche, you might, everybody puts a lot of, when they're learning to improvise, they put a lot of, the conventional wisdom is, don't think, your brain's not going to help you, if you're thinking, you're stinking, and, stuff like that. And there's some truth to it, that you want to find a flow state and you want to just go with it. But if you're never if you just play every Love Supreme quote every time it comes to you, then I feel like you're not engaging with in a way as well as you could.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let me take this in a slightly different direction, just because I was thinking about this when you were talking about chaos, but also other noise music, and some other things. I wonder what you think about beauty. Is that a significant norm or goal in your playing? Or
Sure. I mean, but also what I feel like I might have a different notion of what could be beautiful, or what I feel like music has to get over beauty as the sole kind of
if you did get over beauty, do you have words you could put to what you would have?
I think about visual art like. I mean, I feel like other art forms have been quicker than music in terms of embracing something that might be off-putting, and yeah. I feel like music, because it's time-based, it's demanding. It's demanding for people to have something happening that's kind of
unpleasant.
Off-putting,
unpleasant. Yeah.
It's demanding of people.
Could you say though what do you have anything you could say about what the goal or ideal of music might be if it's not beauty? I mean, because sometimes people pull out a name like that as a way to say what people are striving for.
Beauty.
Yeah. If you're not, and it's fine if you're not, but then is there a way to say what you are striving for?
I mean, that's one of those things where I feel like if I could tell you, then I wouldn't bother playing music. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's maybe something like community, something like communing with people, with others.
Yeah. I have one. I mean, I'd be happy to keep talking for hours.
Yeah.
But I actually just have one more thing I wanted to ask you, and we see if it goes anywhere else. And that was just about school.
Oh yeah.
If that's okay. You it seems to me didn't do a lot of formal music schooling. Is that right?
That's right.
You have talked about the importance of learning a genre and coming to improvisations prepared and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say those sorts of things, that sounds like the kind of thing school would often offer.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of other things schools offer too, though, which is a lot of traditionalism and so on.
Yeah.
You didn't do a lot of schooling, and I wonder what your thoughts are on music school, either in your own case or in other people's cases. Maybe I shouldn't just say what your thoughts are. There might be a lot of them.
Yeah. But, when I went to McGill University for one semester, and then I dropped out. But I guess the if I had gone to a school where I found my people, then I might have stayed there.
Right.
And if I hadn't got a gig, that's the other thing. So like I went to school, and then I moved back to Ottawa for the summer, and I ended up getting a gig that was going to be like 3 nights a week playing jazz standards, playing all the same standards that I was going to go learn in school. And I thought, well, this is just going to be way better, as an education.
Yeah.
So but in terms, like, it's also, I think it's not, when you say formal education, you mean in an institution.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like, I studied with a guy named Chris McCann, and I think he was a very formal teacher. I mean, it was very systematic and very thorough, and I studied with him for about 5 years. And I didn't always meet the goal, but my goal was to nail the lesson every week. And to, if he told me to do something 5 minutes a day, I did it 5 minutes a day. If he told me to do it 10 minutes a day, I did it 10 minutes a day. I also ended up getting tendonitis and stuff like that. But you know, and I've studied with other people as well, and I feel like I am always trying to educate myself. So I'm one of the flaws of institutional education is that it people might feel like they know, like once they get their degree, that they know what needs knowing, and it's just, in my experience, it's not true. And you know, everybody says, oh, and when I got to school, like I realized how little I know, and I didn't have that experience. I'll just
Yep.
And my experience teaching at University of Toronto, sometimes I feel like they're some of the students, not all of them, many of them are really, really great, but some of them, it's not about, they're not realizing how little they know, they're thinking about how much they know. And they're thinking, well, I'm getting my degree now, so I must know a lot. And it's just not true.
Yeah, yeah. That's an excellent Socratic point to end on. I think that Socrates' wisdom is knowing he doesn't know. Actually, I should ask you, do you have any other wise words for people in TV land?
No, none. I don't even know if I had any.
Okay, well, we got the sirens and the drums. Let's
All right.
All right, thanks.